right, good evening, everyone, and welcome out to Speed Racing Network, where we present the playoff round of 10. This is week number 1 of this second round of the playoffs. It's the All-American 125 at the Circuit of the Americas. My name is Sean Griffith. I'm here with Brandon Domain, one of our playoff drivers from the Truck Series. How's it going tonight, Brandon?
It is good, and I am just so happy that iRacing does not have the possibility to have a rain out late in the race like we saw in real life in the Cup Series today. No rain a factor here on the virtual side. So the SRN race, we will get that full 35 laps in tonight.
Yeah, and 35 laps doesn't seem like that much, but it is certainly enough to figure out who our winner will be here tonight.
Oh, without question, and really, it's you can kind of know that in the first 10 or 15 laps. That's 15 about what we're going to see for a green flag run on the fuel distance. But really, from that point on, it's going to be who can limit the mistakes. We saw plenty of mistakes from a few of the drivers up near the front and the truck side. Xfinity side, we saw a pretty clean race. There was some contact between a couple of our top 5, but they all pretty much stayed in that top 5. So you'll know a lot sooner than 35 laps, but it becomes a game of patience and a game of just not making that mistake. So it really becomes an endurance race in a way, even though it's one of our shorter races time-wise of the season.
Yeah, we'll talk about each of our drivers here in a little while, but man, we've got a really good group of drivers out there. But here in the league, you know, we go for 20 weeks. This is actually week number 17, so we're rounding out towards the end of the season here. We do have fixed setup, so everybody has the same exact car. There's no fast repairs, so if you ruin your car, you're out, and that is going to play a huge factor here tonight, Brandon.
Absolutely will, and we've seen it on road courses, real life and virtually in the past, where lap 1 you just try to go for as much as you can because it's a prime opportunity to pick up a few spots, and in doing so it sparks some trouble, or you go off track and pick up some damage. In the trucks and Xfinity, you have 1 or 2 fast repairs that you can kind of make up for that. Here in the Cup Series, you don't have that ability, so it'll be interesting to see if anybody that's trying to make that move sees the opportunity, if they still take that chance, knowing that there's no redos, there's no mulligans here.
Yeah, and I mean, it is just one of those races where you have to stay clean, or you just have absolutely no shot here, especially with some of the drivers that we have on the track.
Yeah, and we saw that real life today on the track too, where with the rain you can kind of get away with some of the damage and some of the aero changes that happen. It's going to be dry conditions. It's going to be fast on a couple of those long straightaways, and you're also going to have some pretty technical sections on this track, which we can all break down once we get onto the track. But so aero is going to be a big deal here for a road course, more than you would normally see.
Definitely. Now, each driver pays $15 a week to get into this. We do have weekly and season-long payouts. The season-long payout for first place in this series is $1,000, so $1,000 on the line, and here we are down to 10 drivers in the playoffs to get that $1,000. And then you have the 5-person team championship as well. So if your 5-person team is better than all the other 5-person teams, then you also win money there. So lots of money on the line tonight, and let's go ahead and jump in and talk a little bit about that money as we flip over to the race payouts. First place tonight, $45. Second place, $30. Third place, $15. There are not a lot of cars out there on the track here tonight. I think I'm seeing 15.
Yeah, that looks right, and so, I mean, really, you can look at it, podium, those are going to be the drivers that make the most out of this track, and really defeat this track. I said it on Matching Wits with Gerwitz on Wednesday. Really, to me, it's more you're racing the track more than you're racing the other drivers when it comes to this circuit because of how technical it is. The 3 drivers that do that the best, they will wind up being the top 3, in my opinion. They'll wind up probably having the cleanest car as well, and they'll wind up getting that little bit of money in a league where it's rare that you see leagues do what we do here, where you'll see the payouts for weekly and season long, as well as team formats. It's great money opportunities here in SRN, and it really makes it one of the standout leagues in iRacing.
Definitely. And the season payouts are really what everybody's all about. Yeah, the weekly payouts are nice, but for the season, if you're in the top 5, you make some decent money. So first place, $1,000. Second place, $600. Third place, $350. Fourth place, $225. Fifth place gets $150, and then that all-important team championship, which we'll talk about here in just a second, $300 for that team.
Yeah, and at this point, we're down to 10 drivers that are available to make it through the playoffs and advance to that championship 5 at Texas 3 races from now. And you look at it, if you make that championship 5, you're getting at minimum half of what you pay for the entire season back. And if you finish third, second, or first in that championship race, you wind up making more, if not up to about 3 times more than you paid for the entire season fees. And that's not even counting what you made every week. So the Cup Series, definitely a reward for being some of the best drivers, not just in SRN, but throughout all of iRacing, with the way that we have the iRating benchmark set to qualify for each league. The talent level here is actually really fantastic, and the purse money kind of is very justified for that.
Yeah, and not only money, but also some prizes also, because Butt Kicker has joined up with us, and they are going to give the cleanest driver of the series a butt kicker. And so that butt kicker will make them an even better driver because they'll be able to feel that car underneath them. Really, really great device. If you get a chance and you have a friend that does iRacing or you do iRacing yourself, then go to the butt kicker website, use our discount code SRNVS20 for 20% off your order. I'm telling you, you will become a better driver just by using this device.
And I'm hoping I'm making a charge for that in the truck series, so maybe I'll get one myself. But it's definitely a great piece of additional support to make the iRacing just more realistic. It adds that sensation, so you can feel the car just that little bit more, and it adds to the realism of things. And that's kind of what iRacing prides itself on, is how realistic it is. Compared to the real world racing. So to have something like this up for grabs and the offer available, it's a great addition to the league.
Definitely. And now another good addition to the league is Kane Cook. And Kane is one of the top drivers on iRacing. In fact, he has more hard charger awards than anyone else on iRacing. And if you don't know what that means that he gains the most positions every single race. So better than literally anyone else on iRacing. And he is our coach out there. So he will actually set up a session with you and come in and show you all the ins and outs of iRacing on every single track, every single car. All you have to do is book your session at speedracingnetwork.com.
Yeah, and to be a hard charger like he is, that's talent. That's also a lot of confidence. And I know a couple of drivers that booked their sessions with Kane had some work with them, and just the confidence level that they had was increased by a large margin by the time we got to the race that week, and had people that would be outside of the top 20 or so in qualifying, and all of a sudden they're up in the top 5 every week afterwards. So the quality of coaching is definitely there from Kane, and worth looking at if you want to get a little bit of improvement.
Definitely. Now, a little bit earlier, we talked about the team championship, and the team that's leading that right now is RSR, Roel Smith Racing, and you can see by the standings here, they're kind of out front. They've got about 189-point lead on second place, so it's not over yet, but it's starting to get pretty close. And so Roel Smith Racing still has 4 drivers out there in the playoffs. Filthy 5 Motorsports still has 3 drivers out there in the playoffs, so they are still fighting not just for the team standings, but also for the individual points.
Yeah, and at this point in the team standings, it's you just look at the win column. It tells you all you need to know. Roel Smith Racing has spent a lot of time out in front this season individually, and they've had the depth to back it up. Filthy 5 at this point, they're going to have to pitch pretty much a perfect game these last 4 weeks to really catch them and have a shot. And with the lower turnout that we're seeing as the playoffs begin, we limit that drivers cannot move up into the series. We keep it where it's just full-time series drivers in the playoffs, so there is a little bit of a lower number. That does limit the spread of the points that you can see as long as you have people showing up. So it looks like it's Roel Smith Racing's to lose. There's still time left for Filthy 5 to make a charge. I think Team SRN, they're probably a little bit too far out at this point, though, to make that charge to possibly grab the team title.
Well, something that we do here at Speed Racing Network that's a little bit different also is if you don't make the playoffs, a lot of times you don't have anything to drive for. But here in this series, we do have a second-tier playoff that's sponsored by Flavor Bomb. So go to fbbbq.com and get your Flavor Bomb seasoning. It is absolutely fantastic. Try the Moab. It will change the way you grill. But up front, max service with 98 points, and basically anybody that doesn't make it into the actual playoffs is able to get into this second tier and still win a little bit of money. It's not a ton, but it's something.
Yeah, it's a little bit of money, but it's also a good amount of pride. It's a lot of drivers that missed at least one race or maybe joined halfway through, found out about the league, and came in. And sometimes just real life happens too, where you wind up skipping a week or two and just wind up not making the playoffs. And somebody that really stands out with that is Max Service. Wasn't here at the start of the season, missed a few races, but has really been one of the better drivers since he came in. And so now you see Max with that 17-point lead ahead of three different drivers here in the tier two playoffs, and he's out there with looks like solid in practice as well. So he might have a shot here to maybe play a bit of a spoiler for the playoff drivers.
No, definitely. Now, let's talk about those playoff drivers because all of them are on even keel starting this week. So once we get into this round of the playoffs, everybody starts off with 3,000 points. And so now these next three races will determine the top five, and those top five are who will be racing for those five playoff spots, those five playoff money positions there. So just because they're in this order, this is how the finishing order ended up at the end of last round. So don't take too much stock in that, though, because 10th place Jacob Smith has just as much of a chance as Gabriel Ellison up in first.
Yeah, and the majority of these final 10, they were within 7 points of not even making it this far. So at this point, there's a few drivers there that are just thinking, you know what, I got nothing to lose at this point playing with house cash. It's time to go, and I think Jacob Smith is in position to be probably the shining example of that as we start off round two with a road course, one of his specialties.
Yeah, and I'll tell you right now, so they are out there. They are getting that qualifying going. And let's start off talking about some of these guys, and we'll start off with Gabriel Ellison. You can see him up on your screen right now out there qualifying. Now, Gabriel, he's been on an absolute tear through the Speed Racing Network schedule, and that continued last week where he got his 8th top 5 finish. It was also his 14th top 10 in a row. And so, sure, he's only had one win on the season. That's what I'm trying to say here. But he's also had 3 runner-up finishes. So not only that, but back in January when we were at the Daytona Road Course, that was our only other road course of the season, he finished in 5th. So if you're a bettor, the best advice I can give you tonight is to bet on Gabriel, and don't forget to cash in your ticket at the end of the night.
Always a safe bet for a top 10. Really been the William Byron of things when it comes to SRN. With all these top 10s, and it shows with him being ranked number 1. Ranked number 2 is Timothy Latham. Timothy on a string of 5 straight top 10 finishes, and while he did have his troubles at the Daytona Road Course earlier this season, we've seen him dominate road courses in other leagues, so I'm not putting too much stock in that one example alone. When you've earned 6 top 5s, 11 top 10s, and the 15 starts this season, you have absolutely earned the benefit of the doubt.
Oh, definitely, and he is just one of the best drivers we have all around, and so I really think that Daytona Road Course was probably an anomaly, but we'll have to see what happens here tonight. But somebody else that's kind of been on a tear is Kyle Spees, and now the thing with Kyle is I don't see him out on the track right now, but we'll give him a little bit more time to get out there. But just 4 weeks ago, there were questions as to whether Kyle was the 4th or the 5th best driver on his own team of Filthy 5 Motorsports. But after 4 podiums in the last 5 weeks, I think it's time we need to start questioning, is he one of the top 2 drivers in the entire league? His one slip up this entire season was at Daytona Road Course, so the other road course on our schedule. But with his teammates kind of showing him the ropes here, I could see a top 5 out of him tonight if he shows up.
And hopefully he does, keeps that Believeland moment there going for him. As you see the Cleveland fan for Kyle. 4th up is going to be Jake Rowell, which a bit of a surprise in my opinion to see him this far down in the rankings after the first round, but we are reset on everything. Did have 4 wins in the regular season, but he has hit a bit of a dry patch here in the postseason. Best finish being 7th. That was his only top 10 finish in round 1, that coming at Kansas. But he is a sneaky good road course racer, and don't look past him to put up a top 5 finish here tonight. After all, he did win at the Daytona Road Course earlier this season in our only other road course event of the season, so we could possibly see a road course sweep.
Oh, definitely we could. Jake's just the type of driver that he could pull that off no problem, but don't look past his own teammate, Dean Brummett. I'll never forget last season with Dean Brummett. So we were going to, I believe it was the Roval, and the night of the race, he was still out there in a practice session, and he was just trying to get his angles right, and he just said, man, I'm awful at this track. I just cannot figure it out. And then he ended up winning that race that night. So, with Jake Rowell, Jacob Smith, and Scott Healy as playoff teammates, we might pull out another win out of his hat here tonight.
Always a possibility. I would never count Dean out of a race. Somebody else I would never count out of a race is James Holtzer. And while Ruel may have won at the Daytona Road Course, it was Holtzer that finished second that night, so we definitely know he has the talent to be up front when it comes to road racing. With James, I can see this being a track where he finishes, between 5th and 9th, but, hey, he's also got that second at Daytona that tells you he could be up front as well. Does give him plenty of opportunity for the next 2 tracks if he does stay in that top range to help him get into the final 5. This race isn't the be-all, end-all for him, but that top 5, if he does get one, would be icing on the cake for the man that entering this race is the 6th seed, first one out, although we do have the points all leveled out at this point.
Definitely. Now moving on to Scott Healy here, and I got to tell you, with Scott Healy, the best thing with him is that he has momentum going on. This guy has not finished outside the top 12 since February, so it's kind of a safe bet that he'll actually be in the hunt here again tonight. I can't stress the importance of teammates more than I do with Filthy 5 and Roel Smith Racing. When you have multiple teammates that are strong on road courses, you learn very, very quickly. Scott is in that position. He's on a really stacked team of Roel Smith Racing. And that's really something that can rub off on him, and so we'll see how that happens here tonight, as you can see him qualifying out there right now.
A bit of a bad time in there with the spin and qualifying right as we cut to him. A little bit of a broadcaster jinx, but he should be in position to have a good night in the end of it. Next up, in our 8th position, we have Scott Kalal, and Scott is the wild card here tonight. He's only had 1 podium finish all year, but always seems to do just enough to keep himself alive in the mix in the point standings, and that's what makes tonight so crucial for him. With all drivers starting with the same number of points in the standings tonight, he does have a major opportunity to surprise some people and move into that top 5 after the first leg.
I'm not really sure it's going to be a surprise anymore. This guy has been right there on the cut line both times we've gotten to a cut line, but he's always done exactly what he needs to do. All right.
Hey, sometimes that's all you need. Just 1 point above is the same as 10.
It works for me. So let's move on to Austin Reedy here, who is technically slotted in the 9th position, but again, everybody's even right now. Now he struggled back at the Daytona Road Course earlier this season. He started off in 22nd, and he actually finished in 25th. Since there probably won't be that many drivers on the track, and again, we're counting about 16 drivers on the track right now, then my very strong suggestion for Austin is just keep the car on the track. There are a lot of good road course drivers out there that will make a mistake that will take them out of this race. So if he just keeps the car clean, then I think he'll finish higher than a couple of the other playoff drivers, and that will give him a good chance going into the next couple of weeks.
A clean car is a fast car, and a fast car will be up front. So if he keeps it clean, definitely can expect to see Austin have a good night to start this the middle round of the playoffs. And somebody that looks to carry momentum from the first round of the playoffs is Jacob Smith. And the only reason Jacob is last of the 10 on this list is because he barely snuck into this round by a single point after a dominating win at Dover. But mark my words, he is the favorite here tonight. Whenever there's a road course, you look for that 11 car, and that's where you put your money. He's somebody that just always is up front on road courses. Did have a bit of bad luck there at the Daytona road course, but traditionally you do see him up front. This playoff round sets up very, very nicely for him, starting with the road course, and if he can avoid other drivers on lap 1, it is likely we'll see him potentially run away with this race.
Well, we do say that, and of course he is one of the absolute best road course drivers out there. But after 2 laps of qualifying, it looks like he hit the track limits a couple of times, which that has been a big complaint here from this, not just this series, but the other series as well, that the track limits are not accurate. And so
it's aggressive. They're aggressive track limits, but kind of what I was saying to a few of the other truck drivers is, as long as they're consistent to everybody, and they are, then there's not a whole lot to complain about. It's just aggressive and it's tight, and you're going to clip those track limits every now and then.
Yeah, now we can see up front on the grid, we got James Holtzer out front for Team SRN on the pole. You got Jake Roel for Roel Smith Racing in second, Gabriel Ellison from Filthy 5 Motorsports in third, and Greg Wellen from HUK Motorsports making his return here tonight in fourth.
Yeah, a couple of playoff drivers there with Timothy Latham and Dean Brummett in row number 3. Max Service, the leader in the Tier 2 playoffs, in 7th. Joshua Balliet on the outside of row number 4.
Yeah, and then we got Scott Kalal for Team SRN in 9th. You've got Austin Reedy from Bronco Motorsports in 10th. Landon Lacey from Filthy 5 Motorsports in 11th. Danny Setzer from Team SRN in 12th. And we talked about a little bit earlier, Jacob Smith from Royal Smith Racing, who we think is one of the favorites here tonight. He is going to start off in 13th.
And while we're looking in the back, I would also keep an eye on Joseph Dupont in the 88. He was, I believe, the 6th quickest in practice. Not sure if he had similar issues that Jacob had, but he'll be starting 15th after not posting an official time.
Yeah, and Joseph Dupont, a very, very good driver here on road courses as well. In fact, in season 1 of Mid-South Madness, took a couple of victories there. So he definitely knows his way around the tracks, and road courses are definitely his bread and butter. So good to see him out there on the track here tonight. But taking a look, it's a very small field here tonight, 16 drivers, so it's going to get spread out awfully quickly, but we'll see how these first few laps go and if anybody can make up some ground, as I believe the safety car is going to get us started here shortly.
Yeah, I think we're just waiting on maybe 1 or 2 drivers to log in. Looks like now we've got that, and we're going to get rolling. But this 35 laps, you're looking at, I would say this is going to be a 2-stop race. You can get about 15, maybe 16 laps, so I don't see this being a 1-stop race. So it's going to be interesting to see how those green flag pit stops work and who can survive this opening lap on some of those hard braking zones.
Yeah, keep in mind a couple things. No fast repairs. That's a number 1 here. So everybody has to try to stay clean here tonight. And number 2, just realizing we've got 35 laps to do this, which doesn't sound like much, but around this beast of a course, it is a long time.
Yeah, you're looking at about 2:15 to 2:20 in race pace for some of the faster drivers. It's 3.4 miles, 20 turns, 11 left, 9 right. It is a long way around this place, and it's so technical, but you're also having some speeds up to 180, and then immediately followed by speeds as low as 35 miles an hour to make the turn. Very technical, very shifty, a lot of elevation changes. It is a difficult track to make your way through over what should be about an hour 10 minutes here. I'm just going to call it an endurance race just because there's no cautions. There's nothing like that tonight.
Oh yeah, so I mean that's the importance of staying on the track here tonight, is because there are no cautions. If you make that mistake, the entire pack just drives away from you. So just get ready for that. But on the left side of your screen, you can see those drivers in green. Those are your playoff drivers. So those are the ones that have the most important issues here tonight. They really need these points for this playoffs moving forward.
Oh yeah, this one, you can't lose a playoff spot into the Championship 5, but you can definitely set yourself up nicely here tonight as we are underway in Austin.
And here we go up the big hill, and we're going to get into this nice tight turn to start it off, and James Holtzer gets through it cleanly. So does Jake Rowell right behind him.
It looked like Jake was wanting to set up James to possibly dive in there. James did a good job of defending that move. And these two, once you get a little bit of clean air and you get away from some of the other drivers, you can really start to pull away from the field once they start kind of bunching up into the S's. As we see everybody sort out single file, patience is the word of the day here, it looks like, on lap 1.
Yeah, and they've done a really good job. A lot of times we see somebody forcing the issue really early. Nobody doing that just yet, except Jacob Smith, already up 6 positions. Started off in 13th, and only half of a lap in, he's all the way up to 7th already.
Oh my goodness. We knew he was going to be strong early, but I don't even know if we thought 6, and we got one around.
Landon Lacey goes around.
It's early, so everybody's still going to be bunched up. Doesn't look like he has any damage, at least to the front of the car. We'll have to check out and see if there's some damage elsewhere. It's another spot there for Jacob Smith up to 6th.
And I mean, this is just, he is just running through this pack already as he tries to set up Timothy Latham here. And Timothy, one of our best drivers all season long, but Jacob Smith just goes around him like it's nothing.
My goodness, did somebody put a set of super soft tires on his car or something? He has just got a ton of grip right now.
Now, I will say Jake Rowell has made the pass for the lead while we were watching Jacob Smith run through the field there. So Jake Rowell up front for Royal Smith Racing while his teammate just runs roughshod all over this league.
Yeah, with this being the road course tonight, I really think that there's 3 main drivers that you look at, and 2 of them are 1 and 2 right now. Jake Roel and James Holtzer, they were 1-2 at the Daytona road course. Expect them to be contending for one of those top 3 spots tonight, but man, what a opening shot there from the 11 and Jacob Smith, all the way up to 4th now after 1 lap.
Yeah, I mean, when you improve 9 positions in 1 lap, you expect there to be a wreck somewhere, but he just made it through cleanly on speed alone.
Yeah, and this isn't the easiest track to set up a lot of passes. You do have some good opportunities, but you don't have 9 of them on the track to pick cars off one by one. So that was just a aggressive start and just a very talented start to be able to pass all those cars right out of the gate. And within 3.5 miles, he's already up 9 spots and about to be another one as Wellen gets around.
Wellen goes around.
Yeah, he clipped one of those turtles and lost control, and it is very easy to do that in the S's, to lose control. And once you clip one of those turtles, it just compounds it big time.
Yeah, so Greg Wellen, who was in 3rd, drops all the way back to 9th. Just like that. That's all it takes.
Yeah, it does not take a whole lot. In fact, now we count him down to 10th, but also he lost about 8-9 seconds of time. So that's just as bad there as all the positions.
And now we're looking at Joseph Dupont here in the 88. Again, a great road course driver. So he has already moved up 7 positions as well. So he has moved all the way up from 15th up to 8th position. And again, I think it was track limits for both him and Jacob Smith.
It definitely seems that. Another one that's been on a tear is Scott Healy in the 64. He's up to 9th after starting in the 14th position. So we're seeing a few of the guys that did not post an official time. And we saw Healy actually spin during his qualifying run. So that would be why he didn't set a time. But 3 of the guys that did not set a time absolutely charging through the field.
And they're all over it. But Jake Roel, leading this field, has opened up a 1.5 second lead on James Holtzer. So he's starting to pull away. But look who's coming up on James Holtzer. Jacob Smith getting closer and closer.
Yeah, he was about a second faster this time through the 3.4-mile Circuit of the Americas as they come out of that final turn 20 and down the front straightaway. Here's the final turn, excuse me. And now we're going up to that front straightaway to start a 130-foot climb up the hill into turn 1.
Nice long stretch here, but this change of elevation, going up the hill isn't nearly as hard as going down a hill. When you go down a hill, you lose a lot of traction on the back tires because everything's front loaded at that point. So you can easily spin out going down the hill, but going up the hill, a lot of times when you come off that uphill, that's when you lose traction there.
Yeah, and with that hill coming out of turn 1, it's not even so much that it's a downhill, it's kind of a double downhill. As you see Smith, he was really trying to dig into the S's. See him kind of barely hanging on to it there. That was a very aggressive line. Lost a little bit of time to Roel, but the same issue happened there for Holtzer. Didn't seem like the cleanest run through the S's there for him either. And so now we're within about 0.4 of a second. But yeah, there's a couple of points on this track, and this left kink that they're approaching here is another one where the undulation of the track, where it's so flat left to right, but you have that kind of double bump going down, or you just have kind of an awkward decrease in the altitude there, if you will. It just really disturbs the car and wants to make it just kind of spin out underneath you.
Yeah, now we get into this long straightaway where a lot of cars will try to outbrake another car, and we're going to see what Jacob Smith does with this as they get it woed up, and he'll try to cut to the inside, but thinks a little bit better of it this time around.
Yeah, I don't think he had a run to really get too much of the nose in there and
there
really kind of make that run. But there's the nice move on the inside, and that's the sneaky passing section here with that double right. And I think I actually just heard him on the radio say that he was going to give him that position after, I think, the entry into 12 at the end of that backstretch. Felt like kind of dove in there a little bit too hard and locked him up and made the 42 get out of line, it sounded like. So I think he just kind of backed off and just gave the little hat tip there.
So out there in the YouTube chat, Bobby Anderson says, you can't start in the back and get a top 10. Keep it clean. Well, we're seeing that right now, Bobby, actually for a couple people. So yes, it is possible. It's difficult, I'll tell you that. It is very difficult to do that, but they are doing it.
Yeah, and those three that are doing it, they're three of the better road course drivers that we have here in SRN, and we'll say that about probably 5 drivers, which seems like a lot because of the smaller field, but it really just shows that some of the best drivers overall in the league are also able to handle difficult tracks like this one.
So going back in the pack just a little bit, Joseph Dupont still moving up in the field, so he's up in 6th position. Let's go back a little ways. Let's go to Dean Brummett back here in 8th as he's working his way. So he started off in 6th, but he's back in 8th. Now again, Dean Brummett, one of those drivers that he is good on road courses, but he's much better on the 1.5 mile tracks, 2 mile tracks, and so that's what we got coming up in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, and for him, it's I hate to say it's damage control, but when you don't feel confident on the road courses, or at least comparatively confident to other tracks, that is kind of how you have to look at it. You need to get every point that you can. You know that there's only 9 of our 10 playoff drivers that actually made this race, so the worst you can be is 9th, but then you got to start thinking, all right now, he's in the 6th position of the playoff drivers, but a couple positions behind Timothy Latham. So he's thinking at this point, all right, 3 points behind the cut line. You can't really fall back a whole lot more because once you get to that 1.5 mile Charlotte, 2 mile Michigan, those are kind of more traditional tracks, and there's going to be a whole lot of drivers that are a lot more game for that one. So it might be tougher to make up some ground than it would be to have a good start here.
Yeah, now right behind him, Scott Healy, his teammate also in the playoffs. And again, I mean, a little bit of nudging there between teammates, but Scott Healy basically following his teammate around here. And Scott, again, a great driver, not necessarily known for his road course skills, although he did have a top 10 at Daytona road course.
Yeah, I mean, he's been solid in the road course this season, earlier at Daytona, but also in practice tonight. Had one of the better times. There's probably about half the field that was under, maybe a little bit less, a third of the field that was under 2:16. He was one of those drivers, and he was pretty consistent with that as well.
Yeah, and I know 2:16, not a bad time overall, especially, I mean, even compared to the other NASCAR drivers that actually drove earlier today.
Yeah, and if you're looking at it, I mean, it was 2:12.91 was the pole time for Tyler Reddick earlier today in the real Circuit of the Americas Cup race. Tonight we had a 2:13.7 as the pole time for James Holtzer, but we were seeing 2:13.3 in practice from Jacob Smith. So you're only talking a couple tenths off what was set earlier today in the real Cup drivers. So that's pretty incredible times that we're seeing put up here in the SRN side.
Yeah, especially considering that these are fixed setups, so they don't get to change the things that those Cup drivers do get to change in real life. And so just taking a car that's already just so, so much the same, so ho-hum out there, I guess is the best way to say it, and turning it into something that's doing this stuff is amazing.
Yeah, and also I would say credit to iRacing as well for coming up with that setup. That some weeks they miss it, most weeks they are pretty well on it. And this weekend they were very on it when it comes to the setup, and that's a nice move right there and a quality passing opportunity for Healy to get around Brummett as he got a better run into that turn, just had a nice easy turn in to turn 11 and got a nice exit down that long 3,000-foot backstretch to set up into turn 12. But iRacing did a great job with the setup this week. The only things you can change in these fixed setups, for those not familiar, you can change the steering offset, which is kind of the angle that you have with the steering wheel naturally, so it might not line up perfectly straight. You can change the steering ratio, which is how much force it takes to actually turn the car as Austin Reedy gets turned around. A bit of an aggressive back onto the track there, but he'll wind up, it looks like, in the 14th after that spin. The only other thing you can change, and this might be the most important thing here, is the front brake bias. So it's the amount of pressure that's going to come from the front brakes, and the way that the car is going to balance out when you do get on the brakes. That is more important, or the most important of the three things when it comes to this track, because of the amount of time that you're on the brakes and because of the severity you're on them at times.
Yeah, and Jake Rowell makes it up that hill, cuts that corner nicely, and now you see an onboard with Jake Rowell here.
Yeah, you get that double downhill out of turn number 1, and it sends you up into that second turn, which is really just the primer for the S's. Turns 3 through 6. It's resembled after, built after, inspired after Silverstone, Maggots, and Beckett's. The pretty iconic sequence of turns left-right there at the British Grand Prix, as Jacob Smith following in the footsteps there of Jake Rowell, who Rowell has actually held serve pretty well. That time interval has not changed a whole lot for the past couple laps, still hovering around that 2.25, 2.5 second mark.
Yeah, but I'd suspect that we're going to see a nice race, especially once we get into pit stops here between these two. Even though they are teammates, they have no problem racing against each other because they're that close anyway.
Yeah, and I mean, yes, there is that little bit of danger of, all right, you race too hard, you might take each other out, and all of a sudden you got a huge uphill climb rest of the playoffs for both drivers that are the co-captains of RSR. But I think with their skill on the road courses, they probably won't have to worry about that a whole lot. Very talented on these. But I think the real turning point is going to be this first green flag pit stop that'll come around lap 14, 15 if they try to maximize the run. But there is a way that you can definitely make up a lot of time on entry, because there's almost a couple different entry points into the pit. There's the one that's set up between turns 19 and 20 where you enter the actual gate to go into there. But the timing cones for pit speed limits actually don't start until pretty deep past that. So if you can get a good run and hold steady through that turn where turn 20 is, you can actually make up a lot of ground when it comes to these green flag stops.
Yes, you can. Now, again, he's just kind of inching closer and closer. He's within a second and a half now, so ever so slightly closer to his teammate Jake Rowell as we're coming right back up that hill once again. James Holtzer has fallen back to third, but he's got 3.5 seconds back there to Gabriel Ellison, so he's still got plenty of room back there. And like we've seen in previous races on road courses with James Holtzer, this is where he's comfortable.
Yeah, and that's a nice spot to be in. You're sitting in third. Obviously, you'd much rather be up front, but when you have multiple seconds in front, you have about 4 seconds behind you, you can kind of just settle in and find your groove. And there's really not a whole lot of pressure to start burning up tires. You just kind of keep an eye on where second and fourth are in the relative screen, so you can know if you need a push or if you are starting to close in on position. So it's a very nice spot to be in there if you're the 42. Also a good spot for the 27 with Ellison, because he's still got about 6 seconds back to Timothy Latham in fifth, who does have some company pretty close behind him. Yeah,
right behind him, he's got Joseph Dupont, who is knocking on the door there. And again, Joseph, he raced with us in Season 1, Season 2 of Mid-South Madness. Season 1 had a few wins that season. He went shot for shot with Daniel Bowler a few times on road courses. So we've seen him in victory lane before, but he has not really hit victory lane since then. But here tonight, it looks like he's got a little bit of a resurgence.
Yeah, he's definitely charged through the field. He kind of got lost in the shuffle with the charge that Jacob Smith put in, going from 13th to 2nd currently. Dupont from 15th to 6th and looking to make that 15th to 5th, as he might get a pretty good run going into this turn. There's now a little contact bumping there. I was about to say he's not going to make that move, and then all of a sudden there's that little bump to the back there of the 5. Well handled there by Latham to keep control of the car.
Yeah, but Latham's obviously not going to be happy with that. You got a driver that's not in the main playoff portion, bumping him a little bit. But I think Timothy's going to be just fine. If Dupont gets by him, then Timothy still has a great race car out there. I really see him being one of the top drivers here tonight anyway.
Yeah, and I think there is going to be that little moment of like, wow, I can't believe he just did that. But I'd also say give a little nod there to the 88, who did back off after that contact happened. He didn't kind of force the issue and continue to do that and possibly get a little bit more into the 5 and cause him to spin. So that, I think, sometimes contact happens and it's how you respond to it. I thought he did a good job of just, let's back it off. It's still pretty early.
Yeah, now Joseph Dupont's going to get that inside position as they come up the hill, and he is going to try to complete this pass. Oh, wow.
Way deep into that turn.
And that just allowed Timothy Latham just to pull even further ahead.
And just like that, it's a 1.5 seconds the difference. And also, now Dupont's got to look back in his mirror, and he's only 2 seconds ahead of Balliet, who makes a nice little move up there because of that mistake into turn 1.
Now we'll jump back just a little bit further here. Let's go back to Scott Kalal, who is one of our playoff drivers as well. He is back here in 11th place. So keep in mind, Kyle Spees did not show up here tonight. So right now, if it ended right here, right now, Scott Kalal would be in the 8th position in the playoffs. And so he's still got a little bit of work to do, but he is, every single playoff section that we've had, he's kind of been that guy near the cut line that nobody really expects to go any further, but then all of a sudden he does.
It feels like there's one of that type in each of the 3 series right now when it comes to the playoffs, where all of a sudden you look up and they just made that move into the top, whatever is needed to advance to the next round. It was 10 last round, now it's 5 coming up this time. And that's not a bad thing to be. I mean, we saw that work pretty well for Chase Elliott in real life a year ago, where just do enough to keep going, and all of a sudden you get hot at the right time. And with the format that we have with the playoff, I mean, you only need one win, really, to win the title at the end of it if you win the right race at Texas, and you put yourself in that position to do it. So that might be something that we could see here with a bit of a Cinderella story for the 23.
Yeah, nothing wrong with being under the radar. It doesn't mean you can't attack. It just means that nobody sees you when you do it.
Yeah, I mean, it works, and sometimes that's the way that you don't have the most enemies on the track either.
Well, now let's go back up front where Jake Rowell and Jacob Smith have opened up a 6.5-second lead on third place James Holtzer. So it's kind of coming down to these two, but every single lap, Jacob Smith has kind of gotten closer and closer, and now we are almost within a second here.
And then going into turn 1 a little bit. I'm not sure if he overdrove that or if he underdrove it and then kind of got a little bit out of line because he was thrown off by getting a little bit slowed up a little too easily. But that did add about a half second to that interval pretty quickly for the 9 as he continues to lead this thing since leading the first lap.
Yeah, and he is really a strong driver on literally every single type of track that we have is Jake Rowell. But Jacob Smith, while a lot of people think of him as a road course driver, he also has wins on other courses as well. So he is not a one-trick pony by any stretch of the imagination.
No, I mean, I think the more you get on the brakes and you have the balance of throttling through turns, once you kind of add a little bit, I hate to say a little bit more skill to the tracks because every track does require a different aspect of skill. But this type of short track road course style of racing really bodes well for the 11.
Now we'll head back to Joseph Dupont and Timothy Latham for their battle once again. So Latham again just gets a little bit sideways there. Let's see if he can make a run and take this position this time around.
The 88's going to get clear, but he is not out of danger yet from a possible return shot here from the 5. This is a great passing opportunity if you're brave enough to make the deep run and can hold on to it. A little bit of space given there by the 88 as the 5 had the inside line. They're going to go side by side into this double right apex. 5 going to try to do a crossover here onto the inside of the second portion of that. Not going to get the run though, and the 88's going to hold on as we go through the stadium section.
And that just moves Joseph Dupont into our top 5.
Man, just a nice performance tonight. 10 spots gained in 9 laps. Very impressive work.
Now going back up front again, so Jake Rowell, Jacob Smith still doing their little battle here within 1 second of one another as they come back up the big hill.
And this is really what we expected to see at Daytona as well. The 11 obviously relegated to a finish that nobody really expected with that 30th position. But this is kind of what we expect to see with the road courses. These two trading shots at each other and just really having... They're running pretty much identical times. The 11's been maybe a couple tenths faster here and there, but this has been very close racing between two teammates that clearly have put a lot of work in onto this track.
Now, we do expect all these drivers to make 2 pit stops here tonight, and so it's just a matter of, where do you start off, and I'm thinking that we'll probably see it around 13 to 14.
That would be a safe bet. I think it really goes by how you feel, too. So if you're kind of caught up in a pack and you want to get out of it, you might try to go in a lap earlier and see if you can catch people off guard, get away from the crowd, and you also get fresh tires for a lap and kind of undercut them a little bit, which does have a little bit more importance when it comes to road racing. You're looking at maybe a 2-second differential in the drop-off. So if you do it one lap earlier, they're on the older tires, you're on the fresh tires, you can make up more ground that way, as well as just being away from traffic. So I think if you're in that position, you might try to come in early on this one and just stretch it out a little bit longer on the last 2 stints. But I think you're right at looking at about that 13 lap position. Not a whole lot to gain if you try to go 15-15 in a super short stint to end it.
Now, both of these drivers are about a minute 45 seconds ahead of Danny Setzer back in the 15th position. So there's a possibility here of lap traffic coming into play here in the next few laps or so. So Danny Setzer, one of our admins from the Truck Series. And so we certainly enjoy seeing him out on the track. Here he is in the number 17 car. Once again, back a ways, but still out there doing it.
Yeah, and you see him coming through into the S's now. The leaders are going to be making their way to completing the lap here pretty shortly. In fact, there they go as they're onto the front straightaway. So you're looking at about 30 seconds, the gap from Setzer to the leaders. You might see them catch him by the time they get to that first pit stop, but it's going to be pretty close. We might not actually have any lap traffic barring any incidents before we get to cycling through some pit stops.
Well, it looks like we got our first taker in pit road. That's Timothy Latham coming down pit road right now.
And he was kind of sliding on the exit of some of these turns for pretty early in the run for that, so I'm not sure if he used up the tires early trying to make up positions or trying to protect position. So if your tires are going and you just don't feel comfortable, you are in position now. 25 to go, you're still looking at a 13 and a 12 on the last 2 stints. It's not a bad time to come in if you feel like you've lost the traction on the car.
Max Service and Austin Reedy both also came into the pits on that lap. So 3 drivers went ahead and took that pit lane, and we will see who else comes down as we come right back around with 25 laps to go.
Yeah, and another thing to keep in mind, too, when we're late in the run is you almost have to start thinking, all right, do I need to start changing my driving style? Do I need to change, obviously, brake points? Yes, that'll need to change as the car changes. The tires start wearing out. But the other thing is, are you going to be shifting as much? Are you going to be going down to first gear and trying to rev it up when you come out of the exit with more power because of the RPMs getting higher in first gear? But are the tires going to be able to hang on to that strategy, or are you just going to have to back it down to second gear, have a slower exit, but where you have more control?
You know, this is actually a really good race at the front, a little bit better than some of the races we've seen in the past couple days with our Truck Series and our Xfinity Series, where one car has been so far out front it's tough to catch them. But I really think we're going to get some great racing out of these two for the rest of the night here.
Yeah, I mean, they might be in just kind of holding serve at this point because their lap times have been so close together, but they're pulling away from the field, including third place James Holtzer, who's now 9 seconds behind
Jacob Smith.
Who Smith is going to make his pit stop and try this undercut. I'm guessing it's going to be a lap or 2 before Rowell will come in. I don't think he's going to try to stretch it too much farther because he's going to be losing about 2 seconds a lap once the fresh tires get on the 11.
Yeah, and I think Jake knows that too, so I'm not sure. I mean, I'm sure that they talked to each other about when they were pitting and that sort of thing, but kind of interesting that they didn't come in together with them being 1 and 2 and teammates.
Well, I can also throw out I'm not going to say a wild card idea, but it's a possible idea. If they're 1-2, and I think through practice and through everything that we've seen, the 11 is the fastest car this weekend, are they possibly thinking, let the 11 come in a lap early, get those 2 seconds, likely get out in front of the 9, and that way they're not really risking anything with a position change if they both agree that the 11 is the faster car.
Yeah, that's true. Now, I'll tell you, Jake Rowell is a competitor. I'm not sure he'll ever agree that there's a faster car than that 9.
That's kind of the sticking point there with that, but I'll throw the idea out there. Maybe we'll find out if that's the case or not, but it's something that's possible.
Well, Dean Brummett and Chris Massey also came in on that lap, as well as Gabriel Ellison. So still have a bunch of cars out there that have not pitted yet, including our leader, Jake Rowell, who now has a 10.5-second lead on James Holtzer.
Yeah, I'm looking back. I believe so. Smith's going to come out in 6th as we're still going through these pit stops. It looks like about 5 cars have made a pit stop at this point, maybe 6. So we're still in that midpoint, but Jacob Smith looking good on these fresh tires. The only sticking point with the fresh tires is they're cold. You got to get them up to speed. So the first couple times you go through turns like the S's can be a little bit hairy, but it looks like he's handling that pretty well.
Yeah, we'll jump back up front to Jake Roel and see if he makes his decision coming up here shortly on that final turn before he gets to the start-finish line. Let's see how tight he makes that turn.
Yep, here he comes.
Yep, going into the pits right now. So Jake Roel diving in. I'm sure we'll see James Holtzer coming in here shortly as well.
Possibly, but remember, even though he started on the pole, he did not lead a lap, so it's a shot he might... Yep, he's going to stay out and get that bonus point for leading a lap. Actually, well, Roel's still going to lead this one, but it would be very likely that Holtzer will lead the next lap, as there's still enough of an interval behind him. By the time he hits pit road, he should pick up a bonus point for leading a lap next time by.
Yeah, that's correct. So that start-finish line is right there towards the start of that pit row. So Jake Roel did lead that lap. James Holtzer, if he decides to pit this time around, will likely lead that one. So, but in the meantime, Jacob Smith now crossing the start-finish line, and so he is up to 3rd place now on fresh tires.
And he did get well past Jake Roel, so you see the difference there with the fresh tires a lap earlier. That undercut is going to give him about a 2-3 second advantage.
Wow, that's more than you can make up in one lap for Roel, and that's really the only difference out there is that one lap of tires. So I really think that this is Jacob Smith's entire thing to lose.
Yeah, and this really played out almost like a Formula One style strategy where you just come in that one lap earlier, make up that extra speed on the undercut. People will probably be tired of me saying that word, but it is an important strategy here when it comes to road racing.
Well, heading back up front, James Holtzer up in 1st, Joseph Dupont up in 2nd. Now, of course, neither of them have pitted yet, so still plenty of time to do that, but really great to see Joseph Dupont up towards the front once again.
Yeah, he's been absolutely spectacular in this race. We keep pointing out that he's kind of been overshadowed by the 11, but an impressive charge as well from the 88. Really making a good showing for himself here on our final road course of the season.
Yeah, now Scott Healy tracking down Joshua Balliet in that 74 car. And so he is trying to make a move there, and Scott Healy wants to make that move to get that extra point here in the playoffs if he can finish in that position. So now he has moved up to 7th. Again, still 2 cars that have not pitted, so he could potentially move all the way up to maybe 5th or 6th.
Sounds about right, and then that's a good showing, and really if you're 5th, I was saying this the other night, if you wind up getting top 5s, whoa, Holtzer sliding it as he comes into the pits. See if he does lead this lap, and he will at this point. I don't think anybody can catch him, so he is going to pick up that bonus point. But as I was saying, as the 88 comes in now as well, so that's going to give the lead to Jacob Smith in the 11, and he's going to be over 3 seconds clear of Jake Roel. But the thing I'm saying is that if you just keep getting top 5s, doesn't matter what anybody else does in the playoffs. You're advancing to the championship 5.
That's right.
So just keep looking at that, keep chipping away at top 5s, and let Texas. All right, that's going to fall where it does.
Yeah, 3 top 5s, you're pretty much automatically in. I'm not going to say you are because there are still bonus points for leading a lap and winning the race and all that stuff. But for the most part, you get 3 top 5s. If you're not in, I'll be really surprised.
That would take just a statistical nightmare to miss the playoff, the championship 5, if you get 3 straight top 5s. And to show how impressive that is, we only had 2 drivers go 3 for 3 in top 5 finishes in the opening round, and they sat there in 1st and 3rd in the at the end of things in that opening round. So not many people can pull that off. If you pull it off, you're I'm just going to say you're going to Texas for that championship.
Yeah, and I think we said in the pre-show that Jacob Smith, this round really sets up nicely for him. Not just because there's a road course, but also he's fantastic at Charlotte, and he's fantastic at Michigan as well. So these 3 courses, this really sets up great for him, even though he was the last one into this round and one of the last ones into the first round.
Yeah, and I mean, you also kind of have to look at the elephant in the room where there's not a whole lot of positions that can be lost if you do show up. This race we had 16 entries, so as long as you're here, the lowest amount of points you're going to get is 24. So if you come out here, fire a shot, lead the most laps, max out the points, and wind up with 45 points, it's going to be very difficult for anybody to knock you out of the top 5 from that point on.
Definitely, and that's what happens with smaller fields, especially as we barrel into the playoffs. And that's what happens in every iRacing league. You know, once you get into the playoffs and people get knocked out, people start to drop out a little bit. So, you know, we expected that to happen here in this league as well, but it just kind of throws another little monkey wrench into the entire scoring system.
Yep, and you know, this is a virtual league. It's for a lot of money, but I'm not going to say it's for life-changing money by any means. So real life does happen, and you kind of start taking that in consideration once you realize, all right, well, I don't have a shot at the championship. Sometimes it's common to see people drop out in this league and any league.
Yeah, now as everybody gets spread out, and we'll see the closest battle on the track here, Joshua Balliet and Scott Healy back here for 6th and 7th position. So as everybody kind of gets spread out, now it just comes into a point of, okay, pit strategy is number one, as well as just saving those tires as much as you can.
Yeah, and I think at this point you're not going to be expecting anybody to come in until about 12 to go. I would not want to stretch out that last run too far. You just have so much that you can lose at that point. So I would expect this one to, for some of the drivers, be the longest stint that they have. If they came in around lap 10, lap 11, you're really starting to look at this being a 12, 13 lap run. So you can shorten up that last one, maybe even go 14 laps to make it a 10 lap run. I don't think you'll see much farther than that, though. I don't think anybody will push going a full 15 and possibly running out of gas.
Well, I'm told that Joseph Dupont had a little bit of trouble back there. Let's go to a quick rec replay and see if we can figure out what happened with him.
He's definitely back in time now, as he's now about 44 seconds behind the lead, so something definitely happened. As you take a look back.
So he's going up big red here, and let's see if maybe he just overdrives it. Oh yeah, you can see the lockup.
Big time lockup. He looks like he's coming out of it okay, and then just tries to power out of it, slides it a little bit going into 2.
But that lost him quite a bit of time, though.
Yeah, it lost some time, but that really wasn't too bad. The only thing he's going to have to be careful of is, you can get some significant tire damage from locking up, and you might just accelerate the wear a little bit, so that might be a factor later in the run.
And that rec replay brought to you by Sandwich Man Racing and Sports Memorabilia. Definitely check them out on Shopify. They have all sorts of great diecast models, great gifts for a lot of your racing buddies or your racing family or yourself.
Hey, and most popular driver wins today. So there's probably plenty of Chase Elliott stuff out there for anybody that wants to celebrate and pick up something. Go check out Sandwich Man.
And now we got a great little race going on here for 5th place. So to jump into that top 5, Scott Healy all over the bumper of Timothy Latham as they both go off track there and then come right back on. Yeah, exactly. Who needs those things?
Which amazingly, a little bit of a slide there from Healy as Balliet will go by. Not sure if he just lost control of that a little bit or if the 74 made a little contact in turn 20. Definitely got a little sideways there for the 64 coming out of that final turn.
Well, now Timothy Latham will be under fire by Joshua Balliet.
Yeah, and Balliet's been pretty quiet in this race, but just consistently moving up as he did start, I say that, he started 8th. So he hasn't moved up too far, but every time I look up there, it looks like he's in position to be making a pass. So he's done a good job today of just keeping that car clean and just continuing to slowly chip away when he can.
And back a little ways, his teammate Max Service, who is currently leading the second-tier playoffs brought to you by Flavor Bomb. I mean, he's sitting back here in 9th, and again, just like you were talking about a little bit earlier, just showing up is 9/10 of the battle in that second-tier playoff.
Oh, especially with the lead that he has. He has a 17-point lead over 3 drivers tied for second coming into this. So a huge finish here, just getting into the top 10, limiting things as it's a lock up there for the 88. Will not cost him the position, but just another moment of possibly accelerating the tire wear there for Dupont.
Yeah, Dupont's kind of been overdriving things a little bit more than we're used to him doing. So,
and that's the thing too. If you make a mistake on an important point and you start sliding back, especially if you have some trouble on, say, turn 1 and you lose positions because of it, you kind of start getting into that position of like, all right, I got to be aggressive, I got to go, I got to make up some ground, and it's real easy on this track. I heard somebody describe it as, just imagine that you're driving with your grandmother when you're going into these turns and you're wanting to take it easy. If you're trying to be aggressive and make up time, you're probably going to lose time in the process, because that combination just does not work here.
We got 3 cars lined up here, and all of them have been fairly aggressive all day. So we'll see what happens as they cut into this tight little turn.
Oh, a little bit of a fishtail there for the 5. Nice control on keeping that going straight. See if that affects them as they make their way down the second longest straightaway on the track going up the hill. See if Balliet can make a little dive there into turn number 1. He's going to take a look at it, but not going to have the space to do so. And they go single file in, single file out. Everybody out cleanly as they make their way into the S's, where this is a no-go when it comes to trying to make a pass here in dry conditions.
Yeah, but I love this view of the S's because you can see exactly how much you actually have to go around these corners.
Yeah, and every one of them has a different turning radius. Every single one of them has a different balance that you need on the throttle and the brake. You don't want to be fully on the brake and then fully on the gas at any point through turns 3 and 6. You kind of want to slowly, I'm not going to say continuously decelerate. There's a couple points where you do get back on the throttle a little bit and pick up some speed, but you do kind of want to have this not linear downward trajectory as you make your way through.
And these 3 cars still lined up as they're trying to sort out who's going to be in the top 5 and who's going to be left out.
And this is just good. It's good, smart racing. They've had opportunities where they can really try to shove it deep into a turn, but I think they know that there's no real point in doing that. We're still not even halfway into this race. You don't want to make it worse by getting into somebody and then causing damage to yourself as well. So this has just been smart racing by these 3.
Yeah, while all this is going on, Jacob Smith really has not been able to pull away too much more from Jake Rowell, so it's still just under 3 seconds, and so not really the pulling away that we thought would happen.
No, and I'm not going to say that the tire age is any real difference. It's 1 lap apart, but you could still see maybe a couple tenths of a second different when you have that one, and I think that's kind of what's making up the difference here is when we saw Smith closing in on Rowell, it was by about a couple tenths of a second a lap. So I think that one extra lap on the tires at this point for the 11 is possibly making that difference at the moment.
Let's go
Either
back.
way. Yeah, still pulling away from everybody else, though. 22 seconds back to 3rd.
Definitely. Now let's go back to that battle that we had with Timothy Latham, Joshua Balliet, and Scott Healy, as we're trying to sort out this top 5. And again, 2 of these drivers are in the playoffs right now, so one of those 2, if this all holds, will be up inside the top of the cut, while the other one will be outside looking in.
Yeah, a little bit of an uncomfortable position. I mean, it's still the first of 3 legs in this round, but you never want to see yourself, you don't want to see yourself outside of the top 5 and in that position where you got to make a move and maybe get a little bit of help, but you also don't want to see yourself close to that cut line either. It's just that uncomfortable feeling, and I won't even lie, I was, I think, 14 points ahead of the cut line going into Dover for the last race of round 1, and I wasn't even comfortable, just because you never know what'll happen. So this position, it's kind of this weird balance of making sure you don't make a mistake, giving some space, as you can see the 5 do just there, as Balliet shoves it deep into turn 11. He's going to make it work, and the 64 is going to follow through the door that was created on the inside as they make their way down this 3,200-foot straightaway into turn number 12. But it's a great run for the 74 because he was single filed out as the 64 and the 5 were side by side coming out of that turn, so they did not get the run that they needed to possibly take advantage of a bit of a draft. And we're going to see the 74 lead this pack of 3.
You know, the biggest thing that we've heard all week long, not just from our series, but also from the actual NASCAR series and its fans, is that this track was not built for these cars. This track was not built for these heavy vehicles with these smaller tires to go around the track very well at all. And you can see that in these corners as they are just fishtailing all over the place. It's tough to control a heavy car in these tight turns.
It's difficult, and I understand that point of view, that maybe these cars weren't designed for the track. And if you look at other types of racing, they're having much faster lap times. In fact, the Cup times are pretty comparable to cars like the GT3s. So you're not even looking at like the prototypes or anything like that from IMSA. And in fact, you're looking at a half-minute faster for the Indy cars, 45 seconds faster for the F1 cars. But they're a lot more nimble around turns like this, as opposed to needing more momentum, needing more braking, needing more balance when it comes to stock cars. I know the truck and then driving the Xfinity car and the Cup car to kind of feel out the differences from what I felt on Wednesday. Wednesday was definitely, the trucks were definitely the hardest of the three to kind of navigate, just because of the way that everything feels. But these cars, I will say, I mean, the best road racers are still going to wind up out front. They're not going to have those issues, and they're still going to be leading the way. So are the cars not built for the track? I don't know about that. I just know it's a tougher challenge, and those that are typically up for the road course challenge are still going to be up front.
Yeah, that guy right now is Jacob Smith, still up front by about 3 seconds over his teammate, Jake Rowell. We still got about 5 more laps until we start getting into that pit window here. But Jacob Smith has been just insanely consistent. I'll tell you, his best lap is still a second and a half off of the best lap of the race, but here he is up front by 3 seconds.
Yeah, and that's something to note, but I don't know if it's too important there. Yeah, it's nice to have the fastest lap overall in the race, but it doesn't do a whole lot of good for your tire wear. So I think he's been the fastest when it comes to the longer runs. That's what matters more, and he's really starting to pull away from the 9 as his tires kind of level out here about midway through the run. One thing I did just notice is it looks like the 88 of Joseph Dupont had a rough couple of laps there, but he is no longer on track. Looks like he got disconnected, and it looks like his night might be over unless he gets logged back in, but he's already about 3 laps down.
Wow. He had such a great race going there. Now, another guy with a great race going, Gabriel Ellison, and we talked about him pre-show, that he has had 14 top 10 finishes in a row. It's going to be tough to not have a top 10 finish here, especially in 4th place with only 16 laps to go. But just this guy has been impressive all season long.
And amazingly enough, he's done it while being, I have to look it up, but if he's not the cleanest driver in the league, he is right up there with them. He only has 64 incident points on the season, and for those not familiar, going off track is typically a 1 incident point. Making significant contact with another car would be 4. He only has 64 incident points over 14 races. He hasn't had one since Richmond, and that was over 3 races ago. So he's done it clean, and he's done it successful. And to me, that's the kind of quality that you want to see out of a driver. And he has shown that he does have the ability to win as well.
Definitely. Another driver we haven't talked about all day today, Chris Massey, back here in the 83. He is the captain of Bronco Motorsports. Not really the season that he wanted this season, not in the playoffs. He is in the second-tier playoffs, obviously. In fact, he's one of those 3 drivers that's tied with 81 points. They're in second place, right behind Max Service. But still out there on the track, still having a great time with it, and he will have his day back in victory lane shortly.
And seeing plenty of success from his team in the other series as well as Bronco. Pretty sure they're leading in the truck team championship. It's kind of slipping from my mind right now, but the amount of success that they've had with wins and getting people up front. Just a great year overall for Bronco, even though it might not be individually the year that Massey was wanting.
Yeah, Bronco actually leading the Xfinity League. The Rev Racing is leading the Truck League, I believe. So
I knew I had that backwards when I said it. There it is.
You had it. You had the two teams in your mind. I know you did. But definitely, Chris Massey, great driver. We love having him in this league. One of the guys that's been with us for a couple seasons now. We've enjoyed seeing him out there on the track. His teammate back here, Austin Reedy, this is his first season in the league, and he has really made a splash being in the playoffs this season. Now, he is back in 9th right now on the board as far as the playoff drivers are concerned. So he's still got a little bit of work to do, but I would never, ever count him out of a race or of a playoff series with 2 races to go.
No, definitely can't count him out. The hard thing for him right now is that he's not 1 point back from Scott Kalala. At this point, he's 3 points back, so he's going to have to make a couple passes here if he wants to make up some ground. And we've seen the importance of 1 point at the end of the round of playoffs. I think in every single series, we've seen 1 point be the deciding factor between at least some form of position. So it's definitely something that you got to keep your mind on early. Hopefully he'll be able to make a couple spots up at least and make his way a little bit closer to the rest of the playoff field.
Now moving back up a little bit, Joshua Balliet still in a little bit of a battle here with Scott Healy right behind him. And again, this is for that top 5 position.
Yeah, and he's the only man that's not a Tier 1 playoff driver that's in the top 9 at this point, so showing his ability here on the road course and showing that he really can hang with the top drivers in the league. So he's doing a great job tonight, and I like that he's done it respectfully. It's a tough position to be in when you're stuck in the middle of a whole bunch of playoff drivers. You still want to run your race, but you're also trying to be a little bit mindful of that there's a bigger picture there for those around you, and I think he's done a great job of that.
I definitely think that Joshua Balliet is one of the drivers to look for next season if he comes back, and that is because if he has a full season here, I really think that he is going to be one of these playoff drivers.
Yeah, and hey, I wouldn't count him out of the Tier 2 playoffs as well. He's only 17 points back. He's in that 3-way tie for second. So if he keeps showing up, getting through the rest of these races, it's not a lock for Max Service at this point that he'll win that Tier 2 title. So don't count Balliet out.
Yeah, Timothy Latham has lost some touch here between Joshua Balliet and Scott Healy, and not sure if that's just him kind of taking it easy on the tires. He is really good at saving tires, saving fuel. Or if he actually has that damage and that's really causing some issues for him. But he's back here in 7th place. He still has about 17 seconds between him and Dean Brummett, so he's got plenty of space. If he just wants to take this 7th position and take it home, then it's there for the taking.
Yeah, he's one of the guys I've seen slide a little bit more. I'm not going to say it's any egregious, and he's actually coming to pit road now, so he's going to have to go about 14 laps. Yeah, he's going to have to go 14 laps here on this final stint. That is a pretty long run. It is in the fuel window, so he's not going to have to worry about not making it the rest of the way, but this is a long way to go on that final stint of tires.
Yeah, another thing that a lot of drivers don't realize until they get here is how tight this pit road is because it's not made for these cars. It's made for much smaller cars.
Yeah, and thankfully here, without having the caution, the full course cautions, you're not seeing a huge group of cars come down pit road at one time. That definitely would have been interesting if we did have that, but it is something that the entry into the pits, you can go very fast in, but it's a gamble because of how narrow that entryway is.
Looking back up front, Jacob Smith still maintaining that 3.2 second lead over Jake Rowell. You can see them both in the picture there, so it's not as big of a lead as you might think. But Jacob Smith still kind of keeping that distance and doing exactly what we kind of figured he would do this race, which is leading.
I will say James Holtzer still 18 seconds back from Jacob Smith, but that is now 18 seconds as opposed to the 22 that it was a couple laps ago. So either both the 11 and the 9 have slowed up a little bit, or the 42 has found a groove at this point in the run.
He's definitely going to have to hit that groove every single lap from here on out for him to have a shot. But Jacob Smith moves into pit road now, and so here he comes down for his last pit stop a little bit earlier than we saw him last time.
Yeah, he also was 1 lap earlier than Jake Rowell on that first series, so this If Roel comes in next time, they're still following a similar plan. It's only that first stint that's really going to be different strategy-wise. But, I mean, shoot, the 11's going to come out probably in the third position still, and he's going to have the faster tires. This might open up to about a 5-second lead or so by the time Roel gets back up to speed after his pit stop.
Yeah, we've got a little bit of racing back here. We've got Dean Brummett, we've got Scott Kalal, and Max Service back here for 7th, 8th, and 9th positions. And it's an important race back here for Dean Brummett and Scott Kalal, even though they are far behind our leaders. They are desperately looking for any type of playoff points they can get.
Now, I want to know if any of these three are going to dive onto pit road and get out of this pack. And it looks like none of them are going to do that.
Scott
there we go.
is.
23 is going to do it. That is a smart move. Get away from this racing at this point. Come in, get fresher tires. You're going to get a little bit of space out there. You're probably going to come out ahead of the other two drivers in this group of three. And you just save your tires a little bit more because you're not having, or save your position a little bit more, save your timing. Keep your car out of some of the stressful positions because you're not going to be in the middle of this three-way race for position.
That's right. And Dean Brummett, another teammate of Roel Smith Racing. And so they are really looking to try to get all 4 of their guys up in that top 5. And it's going to be a really tall task for them to do that. But every single one of those drivers could win at a moment's notice. So they had all 5 drivers in the playoffs originally. Now they're down to 4 of those 5 that are still in the playoffs with 10. They've got a 40% chance to win this whole thing.
That's incredible, and it fits what they've done this season. They have been the dominant team really for much of the season, and it shows in the point standings right now. It shows in the win column. They've got 8 of the 14 races. It was an RSR car that was sitting in victory lane, and I would not count out any of them should they wind up in the Championship 5 at Texas.
Yep, and we're seeing if there's going to be another one as Jake Roel comes down into pit road. And so that will leave James Holtzer, and we will see what he decides to do, and he stays out for one more lap here. But Jacob Smith, not too terribly far behind. He's 11 seconds behind, but on new tires. So at some point, James Holtzer is going to have to make that pit stop, and Jacob Smith is going to get that huge advantage as he now passes pit road where his teammate Jake Roel is.
Yeah, and kind of estimating it here, it looks like it's about 35 seconds, the time spent on pit road. Comparatively, you're still moving, so it's not full time. But the way that the interval will change is about 35 seconds or so. I might be off there a little bit, kind of just spitballing that idea from what I've seen on the timing grid. But for Smith, he's going to wind up definitely out in front. And I was guessing about 5 seconds. It's going to be about 8 seconds now, the difference between Smith and Roel.
Wow, and I mean, anytime you can win any race by 8 seconds, that's insane. But Smith is just making it look really, really easy here. Dean Brummett in now. Joshua Balliet just now coming out of the pits. And so we're going to see how all that shakes out as well. But up front, James Holtzer, and you can see Jacob Smith coming into the picture behind him there. And so James Holtzer needs to do anything he can to keep Jacob Smith as far back as possible. But, I mean, it's almost inevitable at this point.
Yeah, it's about 3.5 seconds faster this lap thus far for Smith over Holtzer, just because of the tire difference being the major factor there. Holtzer just really stretching this tire run out. But he's going to have, again, where he was quick at the end of this run compared to when Smith and Roel came in. He had a little bit fresher tires. That does add up a little bit. I also think he did find a little bit more of a groove on the track, find some more consistency. But I think he'll have that again, but it's going to really be to hold on to that third position, because I think after this pit stop, I do not see him catching Smith nor Roel unless they make a mistake.
Yeah, then he also has to be careful of Scott Healy. Now, Healy hasn't pitted yet either. Now, he's back in 4th position. But again, right now, before this whole pit cycle and everything, we've got 3 of the top 4 as being Roel Smith Racing.
I mean, it fits. It fits what they've done this season. They just always find themselves up front. Just good quality team performance top to bottom most every week, and we're seeing that play out again here.
James Holtzer staying out for another lap, so he just likes being up in that lead, and I think maybe he's hoping that something happens behind him. I have not seen any struggles from Jacob Smith or Jake Rowell. I'm not really sure why he's staying out this long.
I'm not going to say I'm baffled or anything by it. He might just be feeling good on this set of tires and wants to stretch it out. May not feel like he'll recreate that immediately. But I think at this point the tire wear is just too significant to really go past this lap. I think last lap is kind of that money spot to really make that pit stop.
And now Scott Healy coming out of the pits, Max Service going into the pits as well. So now James Holtzer is the last one on the track that has not had his pit stop.
Last man standing, so he does have the lead. He already got the bonus point for leading a lap on that first round of pit stops. So that's kind of why this is a little bit more confusing. But it could just be something to build in that confidence, get more laps led, feel yourself out in front. Maybe there's a little bit of a mental side to it there.
Yeah, and more than likely Jacob Smith is going to be the one that gets the most laps led here tonight. So we'll see how all that shakes out towards the end of the race. But you can see Jacob Smith coming back into that picture. He is only 3.5 seconds behind, and I think you'll see that time fade off even more shortly.
I would be shocked if you don't see the 42 come in this time. I think he's got to be looking at the relative timing and just looking in the mirror. And if he has somebody spotting, the spotter's probably sitting there saying, hey, this guy's closing in. I can't see him staying out another lap, and here he comes.
Yep, going up into pit road. And so that will allow Jacob Smith to once again take over that lead. As we've already mentioned, about 8-second lead on Jake Rowell.
And at this point, it's similar to what we were saying on Thursday, what Jake and I were saying about Nick Gowen, where you get so far out in front, the only man that can beat you is yourself. And you just got to stay in the zone, stay focused. You can't really relax a whole lot at this track because of how technical it is. So you just kind of have to find ways to keep yourself motivated to stay in that focused space, that you just keep everything going. It's real easy, typically, if you relax, that you change your entry into turns, change how you do things. Can't do that. You can't afford to do that here. And I think with the experience on road courses that Jacob Smith has, I would not worry about that. But it is kind of the one thing to worry about at this point. It's just himself making a mistake.
Yeah, we actually saw Nick Gowen as he was so far out in front that he actually spun the car full 360 and still got back in there and ended up winning the race by a ton. So
sign of how good that performance was. He also had the best looking spin of the night and kept it going without losing much time.
Absolutely. So he put on a good performance, and so did Cole Martin in our Truck Series race as well. So that is only going to be equaled here by Jacob Smith, as he is going right now for his 3rd win of the season.
And we spoke about it a lot on last Sunday at Dover, that he's the man that you do not want to see sneak into the playoffs and continue to that second round with this course coming up. And this is the exact reason why. It was a very likely possibility that he would be maxing out points, getting 45 points, most you can get after this first of 3 legs. And that almost makes it where it's one fewer spot for everybody else going in to the final 2 races to make that championship 5. It's going to be hard to catch him if he maxes out points here today.
Yeah, especially, again, with Charlotte and Michigan coming up, 2 tracks that he is very good at. Again, if he just comes in top 8 at Charlotte and comes in top 8 again at Michigan, I don't see him missing the playoffs.
No, if he gets the win here, I think he's about as safe as anybody as far as what you would expect from the field. It does lock it up there a little bit, but still a nice recovery. Looks like it didn't even really phase the timing. So that's a real nice recovery there as he makes his way down into the S's. One thing that we might be seeing here is still about 3 seconds apart, but James Holtzer came out of the pits not too far ahead of Gabriel Ellison. So it's still about 4 seconds, 3-4 seconds, but he did not get much of a gap, and part of that is by staying out as long as he did.
Yeah, and I expect to see that kind of gain just a little bit here. But we'll keep an eye on that race a little bit. But everybody on the track is really spread out right now. About 4 seconds. Actually, the closest battle is between James Holtzer and Gabriel Ellison, and that's 5 seconds. Now, actually, take that back. We got Scott Healy. That's about 2.5 seconds behind Joshua Balliet. So that's our closest battle on the track right now.
Yeah, and we kind of expected that would happen here. After you get through a couple pit stops, you got a little fishtail there coming out of turn 1 for Healy. Nice recovery. But at this point in the race, we did expect to see this get pretty spread out. You might not see, I won't say any passing, but you might not see a whole lot of passing the rest of the way, just because of how there's 16 cars on a 3.4-mile track. They did get spread out. Now it's just about not making a mistake. You're kind of just looking at it as I might be able to make a run on somebody, but the odds are I'm probably finishing where I am as long as I keep the car between the lines.
While you were talking there, I was looking at the YouTube chat, and sure enough, Nick Gowen out there in the chat saying, "Hey, I heard my name. Hey, thanks a lot." That sort of thing. We said his name so many times on Thursday. I would think that he'd be sick of hearing his name.
Yeah, I can tell you every now and then at the end of a week, just without even hearing the broadcast during a race on Wednesday nights, I still have nightmares hearing a certain name just because they're just out front. And there's really been 3 guys that have done that just out front the entire race. And you're like, man, I'm tired of seeing that car out there, or that truck out there. But yeah, it's always nice when you can get your name mentioned on, and that performance that Nick put on Thursday, worth talking about, just like the performance that we're seeing from Jacob Smith tonight.
Oh, definitely. We've had some fun performances all season long, and Nick Gowen getting his first win in Speed Racing Network. Really exciting to see that and just see the total domination there that we found, but not in the overall playoffs, but just seeing him way up front and just dominating like he did was exciting for everybody that watched.
And it was good to see that win, too, just because there were so many close calls earlier on in the season. Bristol standing out most notably, and I know he's clearly watching, so sorry to bring that one up again there, Nick. But just after those close calls, it just makes that first win just seem that much sweeter. So congratulations to him for that performance on Thursday night.
Yeah, and as these laps tick off here, so again, we'll see Jacob Smith way up front. Only a 7-second lead now, so it was 8 seconds, dropped down to about 7. I still don't think that Roell's going to have the horses to get up there, though.
It's going to take a mistake. I don't. Jake is fast around here. Clearly, he's second on the score chart for a reason. But I don't think that in a head-to-head race with no mistakes, I don't think he's fast enough to catch the 11. But if the 11 does make a mistake or two, especially if you get into the S's or if you lock it up at the wrong point, that's 2 or 3 seconds pretty instantly. So it's not over by any means, but if you're waiting for a mistake from somebody, I would not bank on one from the man behind the wheel at the 11.
Yeah, but we are getting into lap traffic here shortly as well, and we'll pull up the trap map here just so you can kind of see exactly where they're looking as far as lap traffic, and you can see him coming up on the 84 car of Austin Reedy. And Austin still on the lead lap for now, but Jacob Smith is making some really good headway on that.
Yeah, only about 5 seconds between Reedy and Smith, and then it's another 6 seconds to Chris Massey. So those will be the next 2 that'll go a lap down. Max Service is another half minute ahead, so we might not see Service get in position where he'll be lapped, but a little bit of work still to do. And I will say, over the races on Wednesday and Thursday, and I would expect here as well, in road course racing in general, it feels like there's a really good complementary driving style when you are going a lap down. You just know that you're beat. You're just trying to stay out of the way. And there's normally a lot of good communication from the drivers, either from the leader to the car that's about to go a lap down or vice versa. And you really see that a lot more on road racing than you do on ovals. I expect to kind of see that here tonight as well. Yeah,
and that's one interesting thing about road course racing, because we don't have any cautions in this series for road courses, that, when somebody does catch you like that, you're not getting it back. It's just not going to happen. So, on ovals, if a caution happens, then hey, you can get that lap right back. And so that's why people race so hard on these ovals. But out here, I mean, it definitely separates people.
No, without question. And I think that courtesy, it's just a way of just saying, you know what, I'm still working on this. Clearly I'm not as good as the person that's getting around me a lap ahead. But you still get out there, you get that experience, and it just makes you better going forward the next time a road course shows up. And we've seen that in different series here, and we've seen that in real life as well, that people just gain more and more confidence on road courses, and they just get better and better.
You know, the other thing during practice sessions, even if it's between two different teams, you'll see a lot of people helping each other out. And so we saw that back in the previous seasons as well. Because there are so many turns here and so many different angles and so many different things to it, you can tell some of your secrets and still keep some of those secrets tied to your vest. And so Jacob Smith could tell me how to run 19 quarters absolutely perfectly, but until he tells me how to run 20 exactly perfectly, I'm never going to beat him on this racetrack.
The old adage of, you know everything that you know, but you don't know everything that I know. And sometimes that you do hold some of those cards a little close to the vest there. But it's also, you know, I think there's a certain amount of talent that comes with road racing, and some people have it a good amount more, and it just comes natural. Where maybe some people over time, you know, if you play on different things, you race on different things, whether it be iRacing, but you stick on ovals, or you come from like NASCAR heat, or you picked up Gran Turismo first, for example. Whatever you started with, you tend to be better at. So some people just started on road courses and games and sims, and they're just more comfortable on it than most anybody else. And once you get to a road course, it shows.
Well, there is certainly a reason that I am up in the booth and not out there on the racetrack, because I have a feeling that I would have been out faster than anybody.
I mean, we all have those days, though, where sometimes it just does not go your way. I know there's a handful of tracks that I look at and see them on the schedule and just go, oh, man, that one's got to be on here, really. But, yeah, I mean, it's, you know, it all just comes down to, you know, road courses kind of show it a little bit more, I think, than ovals, just because of the layout and the amount of space that you can put on people.
Yeah, moving back up the track just a little bit, let's move up to Joshua Balliet, and you can see he's getting closer and closer to Gabriel Ellison here. So it was a little bit over 3 seconds. Now it's down to 2.6 between these two. So Balliet has a shot here in these last 6 laps to possibly play spoiler for another point.
Yeah, he's closing in bit by bit, still 6 laps, so that's still over 20 miles of this race remaining for these two as they make their way through the back half. Where are they right now? There we go. So they're making their way here out of turn 11 onto the longest straightaway. So still about a half lap remaining here, so 5.5 to go. But 74, he's been pretty consistently quick. Ellison seems to be slowing just a little bit at this point in the run. Not sure if he was trying early to maybe catch Holtzer when he had that closer gap there. Holtzer able to pull away now by about 9.5 seconds. So he might have Ellison might have burned up a little bit. That or the 74 just has this dialed in at this point, and he's just finding his way around the track a little bit easier.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on this race for the rest of the night here, but up front, Jacob Smith has pulled away even further from Jake Rowell. That gap is now 11.5 seconds. And so I'm not sure. I believe that Jake has had a little bit of trouble getting up to this lap traffic. He has not gotten there yet. But Jacob Smith just moved his way right around Austin Reedy. Austin Reedy kind of pulled over and let him go. But not really sure why Jake Rowell has fallen back 3 seconds here.
He might have. Maybe he was trying a different line. You don't have anybody really behind you. It's almost 30 seconds back to Holtzer in third. So he might have been trying something just to see, hey, maybe I can make up a little bit of time here. That, or he just settled in and said, all right, well, I got second place tonight, and let's just keep the car on track and not make any mistakes.
Yeah, and if that's the case, nothing wrong with that at all. I mean, there is no shame coming in second place to Jacob Smith.
Oh, no, and I think It's unrealistic to think that you're going to make up that time unless there's a mistake, and if the 11 makes a mistake, it's probably going to be enough that he's going to lose that full gap, and then you're close in, because it would be a spin or something like that to bring Rowell back into the race. So if it's a little bobble, he probably wasn't going to make up that time anyway, so you might as well just say, you know what, let's take second. That's good enough. I'll be in a great position for the next 2 races of this round.
Yep, going back to that Gabriel Ellison race, now it's down to about 2 seconds. So you can see the distance there between those 2 drivers. And so again, Joshua Balliet, not saying he's got nothing to race for because there's still the second-tier playoffs, but he is clearly out front in those drivers here tonight. But he would love nothing more than to take a point away from Gabriel Ellison, who's in the playoffs.
Somebody that might love that as well is Scott Healy. He's only 4 seconds behind Balliet. So if these two start racing each other and get some significant time side by side, and especially if they do it at the wrong point that slows them up a little bit more, that 64 might make his way into the picture as well.
Yeah, Joshua Balliet, one thing a lot of people don't know, so he does race for Tank Racing, and he didn't really have any teammates in the Cup Series at all for the first half of the season. And so then his teammates, Max Service and Seth Berger, came along to kind of help him out here a little bit. But for the first half of the season, he raced all by his lonesome, and he's done a great job even without teammates out here.
Yeah, and that's a tough position to be in. If you don't have the team around you, yes, it's fixed setups. Yes, it comes down to the driver. 95%, 90% of the way. But if you don't have that team to communicate with and maybe pass on a little bit of help and a little bit of encouragement, it just makes it that much tougher. So you're not gonna, I'm not gonna say you're gonna lose a race because you don't have the team around you, but it makes it harder to win a race. Just because you just lose out on that little bit of an extra element. So to have some drivers around them, that just makes you that much better. And it just makes you that much more confident in those races.
Yeah, he's racing that classic Honeywell paint scheme that was put together by Devin Zimmerman, who is the Tank Racing team captain. So really great looking car there. Actually, all the Tank Racing cars are absolutely gorgeous. I like Max Service back here as well, so you'll see him here very shortly, as you can see the Red Bull car here. And so it is a very, very well put together car. Beautiful paint scheme there, done by Devin Zimmerman.
See a couple of those Red Bull cars out there, and it's rare that you see one that does not look good. That's just a good color scheme, a good logo styling, and it just works. And whoa, clipping the turtle there, that's going to cost him a little bit of time and possibly give Dean Brummett an opening here to pick up another position. As we check back in on 5th place, Joshua Balliet still about 1.6 seconds back from Ellison, and this might be something that comes down in the final lap.
Yeah, this is going to get awfully interesting, and while we do enjoy seeing Jacob Smith way out front now by 14 seconds, so I think you're absolutely right. I think Jake Morell's pretty much said to himself, look, I'm going to take second, let's just be clean the rest of the way. But Joshua Balliet still has something to go for here.
Absolutely does, and now down to 1.4 seconds. So there's a good shot, and especially if he can be within 0.4, 0.5 of a second coming out of turn 11. He's got 3,000 feet of straightaway to get some draft and possibly make a dive into turn 12 on that last lap. So this race could be very, very interesting 1 lap from now.
Now these guys both pitted on the same lap, so no difference in tires here unless you've saved a little bit of it. But Josh was just trying everything he can to catch up, and he got it down to about 0.5 second there going into that turn.
That was a perfect entry into turn 1. You see the gap open up just a little bit as it was a stronger exit for Ellison in the 27, but that lead now down to about 0.5 second. It could really come down to who gets through the S's better here. If it's a 74, he might make the pass a little bit earlier than 1 lap to go.
Yeah, they're getting around that turn, and it looks like he is going to inch even closer. It's just a matter of when he tries to make that move, tries to dive to the inside just a little bit.
And this would be an exceptional pass for the 74 to catch and then get around the 27, because Gabriel Ellison really doesn't make mistakes. Very, very smooth driver, very clean driver, not just incident point wise, but just with the lines that he takes, the way that he handles that car. You're not banking on him slipping up to let you reel back in. So for the 74 to catch and then possibly pass here in the next 2.5 laps, the 27, that's a job well done.
And coming down that long backstretch, it looks like he thought about going to the inside. They got side by side for a second there, but Gabriel just kind of pulled away a little bit.
Watch the crossover here. If he gets it, Gabriel did a good job of protecting the inside. Still have that second apex here as they go into the stadium section. And Balliet will keep it close. Still about a half second between them, but you can see now just down to 1 car length as they go into this triple apex, similar to Istanbul's triple apex right turn 8. As they make their way through the second, now the third of those points. Going into turn 19, we're going to have 2 laps to go for these two. Still about 50 seconds behind Jacob Smith, who got to 2 laps to go a long time ago. As we get to turn 20 here in this battle for 4th. This is going to be great, these last 2 laps, as they head down the front straightaway, climb up that 130-foot high hill and make their way into turn 1.
Now, I got to say, truly the best color commentator that we've ever had here. Just knowing where every single turn came from, not just what the turns are, but where they came from, too. Absolutely amazing. I'm sitting here saying they're turning right. You're like, oh, it's from Istanbul.
Well, you watch enough of the coverage this week, you kind of pick up things from the real pros. So trying to make myself feel like one here as they make their way through the S's. Once again, 2 laps to go in this easily the best battle that we're seeing on the track. Do have another close one between 7th and 8th with Latham and Kalal, but this one for 4th and 5th. Balliet getting the nose in there, did a good job keeping it off the 27, maybe cut in a little bit more than he needed to. Doesn't look like he got any track limit or a penalty there for going so far inside.
And yes, just to let everybody know, the lead up front is now 16 seconds, actually 17 seconds. So we are sticking on this battle just for now. We'll jump over to Jacob Smith in his final lap here shortly. But we just wanted to see how this one would shake out because it's such good racing.
And you saw the 74 clip the inner rumble there a little bit, and the curbing, and it popped them up, and it cost them some time going down that straightaway as they make their way into 12. It's now about a 1 second differential, overdriving it there, trying to get a little bit more of that timing back that he lost out of turn 11, and that might be all the gap that Ellison needs to hold on to this for the next lap and a quarter.
Well, while that's all going on, we are white flag now as Jacob Smith with a 17.5 second lead over Jake Rowell. And he is just kind of on cruise control here for the rest of this race, I believe.
Yeah, nobody in front of him. The next car to go a lap down would be Dean Brummett, but that's still 30 seconds in front. So this is just nothing but Austin Raceway here in the vision of Jacob Smith. And just he can really dial it back, just keep everything between the lines, and he's going to coast his way to victory here on a road course once again.
Going back to that huge battle here for 4th place, Joshua Balliet has called right back up to Gabriel Ellison, and now he is going to peek to the inside.
Cannot good job there. Good job there of not taking too much. I know you want to get that position, but when you're not in the playoff, you're racing a playoff driver, you do have to keep that in the back of your mind just a little bit. And I think also we talk about the limited incident points and the cleanliness of Gabriel Ellison. That also pays dividends here late in the season when you are racing somebody and you have the playoff implications. You might get a little bit more space than some other drivers.
Oh, he thought about it, and he's going to get way sideways.
Nice drift, nice save there from Balliet, but it is going to cost him significant time, and he's really got, I would say, 2 turns to hope to maybe close in that gap, but no gap to worry about here for the 11 as Jacob Smith putting the finishing touches on a beautiful performance around Circuit of the Americas.
Yep, started off back in 13th position after not being able to post a qualifying lap because of track limits, and moves his way all the way through as he comes around turn 20, and he will cross that start-finish line with a dominant win. Oh, actually, he stops. What is going on here?
Get a little burnout across the line. You know, they always say he drifted for the fans across the line. How about burnout for the fans across the line?
That was absolutely hilarious. Oh, wow. And a huge wreck right behind him.
That, not intended, I would imagine, crossing the line.
That was Chris Massey.
That was Massey.
That was Massey, yeah.
Roel makes his way across the line to lock up second. And this might be a fun celebration for the two co-captains of Roel Smith Racing.
Oh, definitely. Right at the top of Big Red here. Having a great time up there. And just wait until the rest of their teammates show up. As Scott Healy, he'll be making around turn 19 and then around turn 20. And he will likely meet them at the top of the hill. With that Gabriel Ellison, Joshua Balliet race, Gabriel Ellison did cross that finish line about 0.6 of a second quicker than Joshua Balliet. So Joshua will settle for a 5th place finish, but he will take that all day long. As the celebration continues.
That was the closest to danger for either of those two all day, is almost colliding during the celebratory donuts.
They're having a great time with it. Scott Healy did cross the finish line, but he's just going to hang out back there for a little while.
Instead of going back around the track, he's just going to wait for them there. Actually, you know what? The 11 might not make it back around the track. Look at the dark smoke coming out of that thing. The celebration got a little bit too wild there, and he hit the wall.
Oh, they're having a great time. 1-2 finish there for Roel Smith Racing. And not saying that will do it for the team championship, but that will cut it pretty close. So we'll figure out how that goes. Yep.
They're top 4 all in the top 10. That might lock it up. If not, it's going to be super close as the engine finally goes, it sounds like, on the 11. Or it might have been the 9. I heard that engine sound going. 64 got into it, and I think I saw Dean Brummett go.
Dean Brummett going flying back there. So this is classic Roel Smith Racing, just doing donuts all together as a team. Just dominating that track and out there having a great time doing it. So
they scouted spots to do this too, because the front stretch is tight. They found spots that had a little bit of width to it, so they can really get into it.
What a great race by all of those guys. So let's just kind of go through the finishing results here on the left side of your screen. So Jacob Smith in first place, just really bringing home a good race there. Jake Roel in second for Roel Smith Racing. James Holtzer will take third. For Team SRN there. Gabriel Ellison will take 4th for Filthy 5 Motorsports, and Joshua Balliet will take 5th, not even being in the main playoffs. He's in the second tier playoffs, but not in the main one. But he will definitely take that top 5 for Tank Racing all day long.
Oh, absolutely. That was a great performance from him, top non-playoff driver. And you see him sandwiched there between 7 playoff drivers in the top 8. It was Scott Healy winding up in the 6th position. He will be 5th and on the bubble going into the second race in this leg of the round of 10. Timothy Latham in 7th. He will be the first one out by just 1 point going forward. Scott Kalal, our 8th place finisher. Max Service, the Tier 2 leader, will continue to be that as he finishes 9th. And Dean Brummett rounds out our top 10 with 4 RSR cars in the top 10.
Yep, Chris Massey from Bronco Motorsports in 11th. Austin Reedy, the final playoff driver on the track, so he will come up in the 9th position after this week. So he'll have a little bit of work to do. Danny Setzer was out of this race in 13th. Joseph Dupont had to bow out early as well. In 14th, Greg Wellen in 15th, bowing out a little bit early, and Landon Lacey taken out in 16th position. So, man, great race out there on the track, and let's see what we can do to get some of these drivers up here to find out their thoughts on the evening here. So let's start off and see if I can't find. Well, if I can find James Holtzer, I'm going to bring him up here, and here he comes. So, James Holtzer, welcome up to the booth with Sean and Brandon. How's it going tonight, buddy?
Oh, I'm ready for a water. I am exhausted.
I think a lot of people are exhausted after that race. Really, really crazy race out there on this big, huge road course. So, what was it about this course that lined up really well for you?
Practice. I consider myself to be pretty well at the short tracks, so this track really requires a lot of throttle control, and there's some technical sections. So I feel that a lot of the guys that are good on short tracks, like say Jake Orwell, Jacob Smith, obviously they're good at road course as well. But the drivers that have that skill set, I noticed performed a lot better. And that kind of lined up. But we just saved too much tire that first run, and forgot that we don't have a full-size tank, so I was, saving for a one-stop, and 3/4 of the way through the run realized we couldn't make a one-stop, and told me I had 5 laps of fuel left. I'm like, oh, well, that ain't going to work out. So then second run, we came out and we pushed, and I know we had a lap lap better tires in the leader, but we actually were pushing, and we were making up, 0.6 to a second a lap. So we had the pace, but we just gave up way too much in the first run, and then got off sequence in the second run. And coming out of pit road through the S's, the car hooked up fine, and then it just snapped. I have no clue. I'd probably run the S's I bet you 500 times this weekend, and haven't done that once there. So it was really weird for that to happen, but thankfully had 15 seconds of leadway in front of fourth place, and I will say that really irritated the set of tires. The last 10 laps wasn't really a lot of fun. I wasn't even pushing, and the tires, just the rear tires, was wheel hopping, and just got that initial heat into them and from spinning out, and they weren't really a lot of fun. But like I said, thankfully we had the insurance of time, and fourth and fifth were battling there a little bit, so might have helped us out too. But overall, it was a good race, a good point stay, and that second run also too, we stayed out a long time just because I wanted to make sure none of the other playoff competitors could get a playoff point. So just trying to play a little bit on defense, and we got our playoff point for leading. I believe we led 2 laps, but really was just trying to prevent anybody else other than the top 3 from getting any more playoff points. And we did a good job and good point stay, and we'll be ready for next week.
You kind of answered my question that I was just thinking about with the second stint there. Kind of curious about the timing, and that answers that. But holding serve really well on this road course. You had a second at the first one of the season, a third here today. Set you up well for the last 2 races. How do you feel about Charlotte and Michigan?
Charlotte, I feel okay about. Definitely seemed to be more of a long run set track, Michigan being. Definitely going to have some practice. We're going to do at least the Coke 600 tomorrow night. I think it's tomorrow night at 9, the fix. I might have to look and see when NIS is, but we're at least going to do 1 Coke 600, so that'll really help us learn the track. And of course, practice throughout the weekend. Then Michigan is kind of one of those tracks where, it's a draft track for sure, and kind of the package where we struggle at, like mostly wide open throttle and saving tire. I just haven't quite had that figured out yet. So just going to try to pace and hopefully have a big enough of a cushion going into Michigan that we don't have to be as concerned, and we can focus on more of a wide range goal rather than having to win going into Michigan.
Well, buddy, is there anybody you'd like to thank before we let you go this evening?
Absolutely, like to thank you guys in the booth for always doing a fantastic job, and all the viewers out there that watched. Hopefully we put on a good race. I know road courses in the middle can get a little bit boring just because everything's a little bit spread out. But I think we did a pretty good job of putting on a show today, and just want to thank Extreme Sim Racing, and also want to thank Dirty Racing Podcast. But thanks so much, guys, and look forward to it next week.
All right, man. Have a great night. We'll see you next week at Charlotte.
Thanks, Sean. We'll see you next week.
All right, well, let's jump down and let's see if we can get Jake Rowell up into the booth and find out his thoughts on what happened here tonight. Jake Rowell, Sean, and Brandon Domain up in the booth. How's it going, buddy?
Doing well, guys. How's it going for you guys?
Doing good, man. So I know you've had a rough 3 weeks here in the first part of the playoffs, but now is this the race that really you needed to get back up into that top echelon?
Yeah, the first round, I had to rely on the bonus points a little bit. Wasn't really too worried. I mean, Talladega's Talladega, right? Then come home 7th at Kansas after early damage. So you can't complain about that. And then Dover was just my own mistake. Get into the wall, but we're off to the second round. Clean slate, so to speak. Come home P2 tonight. Gotta love it. Thought I had Jacob for a little bit, but honestly, going into this race, I knew he was going to be better than me and faster. It's just more of his style road course. So obviously the results show that. So, but yeah, to your question, Sean, we're ready to go. Make the final 5. So we got a little bit of revenge to go from last season, I feel like. So we're ready to go.
They're ready to go, and now you got some of that momentum back on your side. But it's kind of what we were talking about on Thursday. It's always safe money at a road course to look at the 9 and the 11, and y'all were just way out in front. And I would imagine that just has to go to a whole lot of practice and preparation leading up to this race, yeah?
Yeah, like I said in the broadcast with you, Brandon, for the Xfinity Series, that we've been practicing for almost 2 months, probably at COTA, just realizing the importance on it, and it just shows obviously with the results tonight. And it's not just the road courses. I mean, you can look at the team collectively, all together. Roel Smith Racing, and I mean we've put an RSR car in victory lane quite a bit this season. So we'll we might even start tonight. Usually some of the guys kind of want to, all across the board with the Xfinity team and the Cup team starting. With Charlotte tonight and just moving, for that next week set of races. So, it's just kind of the mojo we have at RSR. It's just all about clicking all together and, firing on all cylinders when we get to the races.
We see you and Jacob up front in these road courses, and then now we're going into just a typical 1.5 miles, and then followed up by a 2-mile Michigan, and that's really where the bread and butter of Roel Smith Racing has been those 1.5 mile and 2-mile tracks. So what do you think the odds are of having all 4 of your drivers in the top 5 at the end of this playoff run?
Yeah, I think 3 could be really easy. I think just 4 might be difficult with obviously just naturally the fewer drivers showing up, so it could be tough with that. But I mean, it's definitely possible. Charlotte's a really good track, and then obviously, MIS, Michigan International Speedway, the home track for Roel Smith Racing. So we absolutely love that place. I don't know. I just feel we feel really, really good about our chances of getting, I guess, 4 guys in. We just, unfortunately, one of us could get bounced, right? I mean, we have 4 of the 10, so it could happen. But we're just one big, team working together all the time. So just getting at least a few of us in there, that's our shot to have better odds at the championship in the final race at Texas.
Well, buddy, is there anybody you'd like to thank before we let you go this evening?
Yeah, first off, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Off Apex Designs. He makes awesome paints for our team. He's going to be putting in more work for the next season in SRN all across the board. Got to thank my teammates at Roel Smith Racing in the Cup Series: Dean Brummett, Scott Healy, Jacob Smith, my eye in the sky every single week, Brian Smith, does a flawless job with pit strategy and just calling things out on the track. So shout out them, and obviously the boys in the Xfinity Series. It's a 10-man team. We all practice together, we'll all jump in the other cars, things like that. So everyone at our RSR deserves shout out.
All right, man. Well, you have a great week this week. Congratulations on another podium finish for you guys, as well as just for yourself. But we'll see you next week at Charlotte.
Awesome. Sounds good, boys. Good job as always on the broadcast.
Thanks, man. Take care. All right, let's see if we can't go down there and get Mr. Winner himself, going back to back. And Jacob Smith, this is Sean and Brandon up in the booth. Man, congratulations on another fantastic race. And, you were the favorite coming into this thing just because of your experience in the road courses and everything. But you've definitely set yourself apart, especially in this part of the playoffs where these 3 tracks seem to be lining up really well for you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It was kind of tough for the first couple laps. I didn't put a qualifying lap down, so coming from 13th or 14th place was going to be a challenge, but I had to get it done early, so I had some clear track in front of me.
Yeah, and speaking of that early run, you made up 9 spots on the first lap. How was that experience going through everything, and just how did you do that? Because there's pretty limited passing opportunities, but the way that you cut through the field was incredible.
Well, I think part of it's just being a little more confident on the brakes than some other people and just capitalizing on the opportunities. I had teammates working with me as well. Dean let me buy in a good spot, which set me up perfectly for the second part of the lap. And nothing else I can really ask for. 9 spots in 1 lap was all I really needed to do to start.
Well, man, going back to the schedule here, I mean, you had this road course, which, again, was perfect for the start for you in this playoff series. You've got Charlotte next week. I know you're fairly confident there, and then you have your home track at Michigan the week after that. What do you think your odds are the next couple of weeks to not just go 2 in a row, but 3 or 4?
Charlotte, I really like Charlotte. Michigan, I've struggled at in the past, but I think just putting some extra practice in the next couple of weeks, I think we'll do pretty well. So I think it's going to be a good shot going into Texas for the final, and we'll see what the next couple weeks have in store.
Well, man, you've just been absolutely killing it in these playoffs, and so congratulations on that. Anybody you'd like to thank as we let you go here this evening?
I'd like to thank my boy Alex, who I saw was out there in the chat. He's been supporting me the whole time. I'd like to thank all the guys back at RSR and Off Apex Designs for always getting us some good paint schemes.
All right,
by the way, I just want to throw in not a question, but that was probably one of the more creative celebrations we've seen going across the line. So well done on that touch and confusing us for a second.
Well, I almost confused myself. Yeah, I almost confused myself. I dropped it into neutral by accident, and it wouldn't go back in gear for a second. So I was having a little bit of a panic attack, and so after that, I just kind of had to light it up through all 4 gears going up the hill.
Well, we just both said, "Oh yeah, he's coming across." Oh wait, what? Oh, so really, thanks for keeping our heart rates up. We appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I kept my own up for a second. I saw Jake was closing pretty fast, and I started to panic because it wouldn't go back in gear. So I'm glad it finally worked out.
Well, buddy, great race here tonight. We'll see you next week at Charlotte. All right.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
All right. Hey, Brandon, great race here tonight, but it's going to be an even better race next week at Charlotte as we go back to the ovals again.
Oh yeah, there's a whole lot of people that are breathing a sigh of relief that they did a decent enough job to still be in striking distance, possibly still in the top 5 when it comes to the playoff standings, as they leave a road course and go to the more traditional tracks. Just a classic track here with Charlotte Motor Speedway, one of the iconic tracks there for NASCAR, one of the crown jewel events with the 600. We're going a long way ourselves, 200 miles next Sunday, going to be a great one.
Man, it is going to be a lot of fun there for the Cup Series, but also for the Truck Series going there, the Queen City 125 at Charlotte. And I think we're going to see a lot of great racing out of that series as well.
Yeah, I would like to see a nice boring day with me out in front, but you never know. You can't plan on such things. So that track, it's nice that this technically, if you ran the preseason races, the recruitment races, this is really the first time we're going back to a second track for a second time. So experience and a little bit more familiarity might come into play for some of the drivers that did run this in the preseason. So it'll be interesting from that regard, but I think you're going to see a lot of the drivers that we've seen out in front over the course of the season that will probably find their way back out in front, and maybe we'll see if somebody can kind of spoil that party.
Well, man, I cannot wait to see you out there on the track and see what you can do out there, but also just to kind of get a little bit of clarity on the playoff picture. And so that's going to be a really, really fun race. So definitely come back and join us on Wednesday, May the 26th at 9:30 p.m. Central. Come back next week to watch the Cup Series do battle there as well. And don't forget Thursday night, May 27th, we've got the Xfinity Series at Charlotte as well. So a lot of racing going on, a lot of big races because of the playoffs. But for tonight, for myself, Sean Griffith, for Brandon Domain, for everyone here at Speed Racing Network, for all the drivers, all the fans, everything. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, go faster.